Ethan Miller always believed in control. The gym was his safe place, a world where progress could be measured, where effort brought results, and where silence meant focus. Every morning began the same. The low hum of treadmills, the soft metallic clinks of weights, the smell of coffee from the front desk. It was a rhythm he trusted, one that made sense in a life that often didn't. Then Liam walked in. He wasn't like the others. Most new clients came with big talk, showing off enthusiasm that vanished after a week. But Liam was different. His energy was quiet, uncertain. He stood near the door, clutching his membership form as if it were a lifeline. "I'm here for personal training," he said softly, avoiding eye contact. Ethan gave a professional smile, noticing the way Liam's hands trembled slightly as he filled in his details. During their first session, Ethan realized this wasn't just about fitness. Liam was recovering, not from an injury but from something emotional. There was a heaviness in the way he moved, as though the weight on his shoulders was far more than physical. Ethan didn't ask questions. He just guided him patiently, adjusting posture, correcting technique, offering quiet encouragement. At first, they spoke only about workouts, reps, breathing, hydration. But slowly, the silences between sets filled with fragments of conversation. Liam talked about his job, about feeling stuck, about a breakup that had left him doubting his own worth. Ethan listened more than he spoke, and when he did, his voice carried warmth he hadn't used in a while. He didn't notice when the sessions started lasting a little longer than scheduled, or when he began checking the clock less, and Liam's expression more. After all, he told himself, this was part of the job, building trust, motivating clients. That's what good trainers did. At home, Adam was there, same as always, organized, dependable, focused on work. They had been together for years, but lately the connection had thinned. Dinners were short, conversations shorter. When Ethan came home late, he'd say he had another client who needed help. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't quite the truth either. As the days passed, Liam began to change. His form improved, his confidence returned, and his laughter became more frequent. He often thanked Ethan at the end of each session, words filled with genuine gratitude. "You make it easier to keep going," he said one night, sweat glistening under the gym lights. Ethan smiled and looked away, feeling a warmth in his chest that he couldn't quite name. He began to notice small details, the way Liam's eyes lit up when he hit a new record, the way his voice softened when he shared something personal. Ethan tried to ignore it, pushing the thoughts away during his own workouts, but it was hard to deny how much he looked forward to their sessions. It wasn't attraction, he told himself. It was connection, a sense of purpose. One evening, rain hammered the gym windows, and the power flickered. The machines fell silent, leaving only the sound of water and their quiet breathing. "Guess that's our cue to stop," Ethan said, sitting on the floor beside Liam. They talked in the dim emergency light, about fear, about failure, about starting over. Liam's voice trembled when he said, "It's strange. You barely know me, yet you make me feel like I can breathe again." Ethan froze for a second. It wasn't what Liam said. It was how he said it, sincere, vulnerable. He could have brushed it off with a joke, but he didn't. He just nodded slowly, replying, "Sometimes you just need someone to believe you can." When the lights came back, they both stood, awkwardly aware that something had shifted. The session ended soon after, but neither moved toward the door right away. Liam lingered, adjusting his bag strap. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, same time." He watched Liam leave, rain soaking his hoodie, disappearing into the night. For a long moment, Ethan stood there, listening to the faint echo of the closing door. It felt too quiet once he was gone. Driving home, Ethan tried to replay the day like any other, reps, sets, coaching, but his thoughts kept circling back. He told himself it was harmless. He was helping someone heal, doing his job, nothing more. Yet the calm he usually carried had turned uneasy. The idea of Liam's smile appeared again and again in his mind, as if it had left a mark he couldn't rub away. When Adam asked why he was late, Ethan said, "Power outage slowed things down." Adam nodded absently, scrolling through emails. Ethan looked at him for a long second, realizing how distant they'd grown. That night, he lay awake staring at the ceiling, hearing the rain against the window, feeling the same strange warmth he felt at the gym, comforting and confusing all at once. He didn't know what to call it yet. He only knew that something had begun to change, quietly and without permission, beneath the surface of what they both called just training. The weeks that followed slipped by quietly, each day blending into the next. Ethan and Liam met 3 evenings a week, just as before. The workouts were the same: weights, balance, endurance. But the air between them had changed. What once felt professional now carried an undertone neither of them mentioned. Liam had grown stronger, more confident. He smiled more, joked more, and sometimes stayed after training just to talk. Ethan told himself he didn't mind. He was proud of Liam's progress, and pride was harmless, wasn't it? Still, the more they talked, the harder it became to keep a professional distance. At home, Ethan's life with Adam felt stuck on repeat. Adam was still kind, still present in his own way, but work took most of his energy. Their conversations had become routine: small talk, schedules, reminders. Ethan didn't notice how often he picked up his phone now, waiting for a message that didn't come from Adam. It started with short texts. "Thanks for today." Then came longer ones. "I almost gave up before you started training me." "I'm glad you didn't let me," Ethan always replied politely, but inside he felt something stir, an echo of being needed, of being seen. One Friday evening, Liam asked if Ethan would help him train outdoors for a change. "There's a trail by the lake," he said, smiling nervously. "I used to run there before everything." Fell apart. Ethan hesitated but agreed. It sounded harmless, a coach helping his client regain confidence. The lake shimmered in the fading light when they met there. The air was cool, the sky streaked with gold. They stretched in silence, the kind that feels comfortable, not awkward. Liam began his run, his rhythm steady, his breathing even. When he paused halfway, Ethan jogged beside him, offering quiet encouragement. Afterward, they sat by the water, shoes off, watching the sun disappear behind the trees. "I didn't think I could do this again," Liam admitted softly. "You make me want to try," Ethan smiled, meaning to respond with something simple, something safe, but the words caught in his throat. He looked at Liam, really looked, and realized he'd crossed a line without noticing. Not with actions, but with feelings. He told himself it didn't mean anything. But when he drove home that night, his chest felt heavy. The silence beside Adam felt heavier still. Later, while Adam worked on his laptop, Ethan checked his phone. A new message from Liam glowed on the screen. "Thank you for today. You don't know how much it means." Ethan stared at it longer than he should have before typing, "I'm proud of you." Then he deleted the message instead of sending it. The next morning, Adam noticed the change. "You've been quiet lately," he said over breakfast. Ethan shrugged. "Just tired." Adam smiled faintly, but his eyes searched for something. Ethan looked away. At the gym, he tried to keep things normal. But every time Liam laughed, or thanked him, or looked at him like he was someone who mattered, Ethan felt that same unspoken pull. It scared him, not because of what might happen, but because of what already had. A week later, Adam found Liam's thank you note tucked in Ethan's gym bag. It was simple, handwritten. "You make me want to believe again." Adam didn't say anything at first. He just placed it on the counter and waited. Ethan felt the air tighten around them. "It's from a client," he said quickly. "Nothing more." Adam nodded slowly. "I believe you," he said, though his voice didn't sound convinced. Then quieter, "But I also know when your heart's somewhere else." The words hit harder than anger ever could. Ethan didn't defend himself. He couldn't, because deep down Adam was right. That night, Ethan sat in the dark, the note still on the counter. He thought about Liam's smile, about Adam's silence, about how easily warmth can turn into guilt. He realized he had been searching for connection in someone else instead of fixing what had broken at home. He picked up his phone again, stared at Liam's name, and then set it down. Some boundaries couldn't be redrawn once they'd been crossed, but maybe they could be respected from now on. The next session, Ethan acted like everything was normal. He focused on form, posture, breathing, anything but the space between them. Liam noticed the change. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked gently. Ethan shook his head. "No, you're doing great. I just need to keep things professional." Liam looked down, nodded, and gave a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Got it, coach." For the rest of the session, neither spoke much. The sound of weights replaced the easy laughter that used to fill the air. When Liam left, he said goodbye quietly, as though afraid the word itself might break something fragile. Ethan stood by the window after he was gone, watching the streetlights flicker. The rain had started again, soft and steady. He thought of Adam, of the life waiting for him at home, and of the mistake he was still trying not to name. It wasn't an affair. Not yet. But it had been something close enough to make him question who he was becoming. He locked the gym, pocketed his keys, and whispered to the empty room. It was supposed to be just training. Ethan didn't sleep much after that night. He kept replaying the same thoughts, what he'd said, what he hadn't, and what could have happened if he hadn't pulled back in time. For the first time in years, the gym no longer felt like a refuge. It was filled with reminders of moments he couldn't explain and emotions he wasn't proud of. The next morning, he sent a short message to Liam. "Let's take a break from training for a while. You've made great progress. I think you can handle things on your own now." He stared at the screen for a long time before pressing send. The reply came a few hours later. "If that's what you need, I understand. Thank you for everything." There were no accusations, no anger, just quiet acceptance. That hurt more than anything else. When Ethan saw him next, it wasn't for a session. Liam had stopped by to drop off a water bottle he'd left behind. He looked calm, maybe a little sad, but not surprised. "I didn't come to ask questions," Liam said softly. "I just wanted to say thank you. You helped me remember what it feels like to try again." Ethan nodded, unsure what to say. "You helped me too," he finally managed. It was the truth. Liam smiled faintly, and after a moment he turned and left. The door closed quietly behind him, leaving Ethan alone with the steady hum of treadmills and the faint smell of chalk and coffee. For days afterward, he moved through his schedule like a machine. He trained clients, updated programs, sent follow-up messages, but everything felt muted. The sessions that used to excite him now felt like routine again, the way they had before Liam. Maybe that was how it was supposed to be. At home, Adam was still distant, but at least there was honesty between them now. Ethan told him everything, not in detail, but enough to make things clear. He admitted that he'd let his emotions drift, that he'd found comfort where he shouldn't have. Adam listened silently, his hands clasped together, eyes fixed on the floor. When Ethan finished, there was a long pause. Then Adam said quietly, "Thank you for telling me. I don't know what happens next, but I needed to hear it from you." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. They began small, sharing coffee in the mornings again, cooking dinner together on weekends, talking about work and plans like they used to. The warmth didn't come back instantly, but neither of them expected it to. Healing, Ethan realized, wasn't a switch. It was a process. Weeks passed. The seasons changed, the gym got busier, and the rhythm of daily life returned. Sometimes, when Ethan trained new clients, he caught glimpses of Liam in small gestures, a hesitant smile, a nervous laugh, and it reminded him to keep boundaries firm and intentions clear. He'd learned that closeness wasn't always kindness if it blurred the line between care and craving. One evening, as he closed the gym, he found the journal he used to keep in his locker. He hadn't written in it for years. On impulse, he flipped to a blank page and began to write. Sometimes infidelity isn't about betrayal in action, but in attention. It begins when you give someone else the thoughts and warmth that belong to the person who trusts you most. He paused, then added, "But admitting it, stopping before it turns into something worse, is a kind of loyalty too. A painful one, but still loyalty." When he finished, he closed the notebook and felt lighter. For the first time in months, the guilt began to fade into something gentler, understanding. A few days later, he spotted Liam across the street near a cafe. They saw each other at the same moment. Liam smiled, genuine and relaxed, and raised a hand in a small wave. Ethan returned it. No words, no tension, just quiet recognition of something that had happened and passed. It was closure, without needing to say so. That night, Ethan and Adam cooked together, laughing softly over burned toast. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. When Adam leaned his head on Ethan's shoulder, Ethan let out a slow breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. He thought about how easily connection could turn into temptation, and how the real test wasn't avoiding feelings, it was choosing what to do with them. As he turned off the kitchen light, he looked at Adam and whispered, "I'm glad we're trying again." Adam smiled faintly. "So am I." Ethan went to bed feeling tired but peaceful. He knew he couldn't change what had happened, but he could learn from it. And maybe that was enough. The next morning, the gym was quiet when he arrived. Sunlight poured through the glass windows, dust particles dancing in the air. A new client stood waiting near the front desk, nervous and eager, just like Liam had once been. Ethan walked over, introduced himself, and began outlining a training plan. His voice was calm, steady, professional. This time, when the client smiled with gratitude, Ethan smiled back, but only as a trainer should. The lesson had stayed with him: empathy without attachment, kindness without crossing lines. He picked up a towel, wiped down the equipment, and looked around the empty space. The same weights, the same music, the same smell of coffee. Yet something inside him was different now, quieter, wiser. For the first time in a long while, Ethan felt like he had control again. Not the rigid kind that shuts feelings out, but the balanced kind that knows when to open up and when to step back. He glanced once more toward the door where Liam had walked out months ago and whispered to himself, "It really was just training." In more ways than one. The scene faded with the hum of the gym and the calm rhythm of Ethan's breathing, steady, centered, ready to move forward.